Hi everyone, welcome back to History Discussion. Today, I'm an American storyteller sharing with you the dramatic diplomatic showdown between the United States and Vietnam during the events surrounding the Tet Offensive of 1968. Let's dive right in. In the spring of 1968, North Vietnam launched the Tet Offensive, an unexpected major assault across South Vietnam that shocked the world and deeply affected U.S. strategy and politics. As Americans, we tend to focus on our military reaction during Tet. But equally significant was how our government, through our diplomats and military leaders, began considering peace negotiations in a new light. Simultaneously, North Vietnam designated Le Duc Tho, a seasoned veteran of resistance and a top official in the Communist Party, to lead their diplomatic efforts. Although not yet in Paris initially, he was quickly reassigned to oversee negotiations with us. In fact, after the Tet Offensive, Ho Chi Minh and the party Central Politburo appointed Tho to head their delegation in Paris. Tho, who had survived years of imprisonment under French colonial rule and earned the nickname the Hammer for his discipline and toughness, was seen by North Vietnam as the formidable strategist they needed. Our side was led by Henry Kissinger, national security advisor to President Nixon. Kissinger began secret talks with Tho in early 1970 to break years of deadlock. The first meeting between Kissinger and Tho occurred on February 21, 1970, in Paris. Though Xuan Thuy was the official head of the North Vietnamese delegation, it was Tho who took the real lead in negotiations. Kissinger described Tho as calm and dignified, always dressed in gray or maroon, with a smart and unyielding presence. At their talks, Tho insisted on an immediate and unconditional halt to all bombing of North Vietnam before any discussion on South Vietnam's political future could begin. He eventually accepted that South Vietnam might continue as a separate entity, but only if the National Liberation Front, NLF, was guaranteed representation in its government. Despite our side's expectations, Tho remained firm and undisguisedly skeptical of our intentions. Throughout 1970-1972, Kissinger and Tho held dozens of secret sessions. Kissinger often sought to modify previous agreements to accommodate the South Vietnamese government led by President Thieu. Tho resisted strongly, accusing us of bad faith negotiations and rejecting last-minute changes. He argued that North Vietnam would not accept proposals that undermined previous understandings, especially regarding prisoner exchange and troop withdrawal timelines. Then, in December 1972, after months of stalled progress, the U.S. launched heavy Christmas bombings over Hanoi and Haiphong to pressure Hanoi back to the table. But it proved futile. Tho refused to yield, and by January 1973, negotiations resumed on original terms. The eventual agreement, signed on January 23, 1973, mirrored the October draft that Tho had insisted on. It included a ceasefire, withdrawal of U.S. troops, prisoner exchanges, elections in South Vietnam, and the right for North Vietnamese forces to remain in the South. When the Nobel Peace Prize Committee awarded the prize jointly to Tho and Kissinger in 1973, Tho refused it, declaring that peace had not truly been established. He believed America and the South Vietnamese regime had violated the agreement, and that awarding peace to both aggressor and defender was unacceptable. At this transition point, we shift from high-stakes diplomacy to what comes next, the collapse of South Vietnam in 1975 and the final chapter in the long struggle. Picking up where we left off after the signing of the Paris Peace Accords in January 1973, Americans watched with cautious optimism as our last combat troops began to withdraw from Vietnam. There was a sense among many in the U.S. that finally our long, costly involvement was ending. However, the truth on the ground was much more complicated. Despite the ceasefire, fighting between North and South Vietnamese forces continued almost immediately. The South Vietnamese army, known as ARVN, was left to defend the country with only limited U.S. support. Congress, responding to growing war fatigue at home, sharply reduced aid to South Vietnam. Meanwhile, the North, led by determined leaders like Le Duc Tho, continued to build up their strength and prepare for a new offensive. During this period, Tho was a key figure in coordinating political and military strategies from Hanoi. While our diplomats and military advisors hoped that the balance of power would hold, North Vietnam maintained extensive supply routes, including the legendary Ho Chi Minh Trail, running through Laos and Cambodia. American intelligence repeatedly reported large-scale movement of men and material southward, but with U.S. forces gone, options were limited. Throughout 1974, the South Vietnamese government, under President Thieu, struggled with declining morale, corruption, and economic crisis. The promise of the Paris Agreement that the people of South Vietnam would decide their own political future began to seem impossible. By late 1974, North Vietnamese forces had positioned themselves for a decisive campaign. In March 1975, North Vietnam launched the Spring Offensive, a massive coordinated assault against South Vietnam. City after city fell at a staggering speed. Despite years of U.S. investment and training, the ARVN could not hold the line. The collapse was sudden and, for many Americans watching on television, utterly shocking. In just 55 days, North Vietnamese forces captured key provincial capitals, broke ARVN defenses, and advanced rapidly toward Saigon. Le Duc Tho remained at the heart of Hanoi's leadership, overseeing both the political messaging and the overall strategy. He and his colleagues framed the campaign as a final push for national reunification, rallying their forces with a mix of revolutionary fervor and careful planning. In April 1975, as North Vietnamese tanks rolled toward Saigon, the world witnessed chaotic scenes of evacuation, helicopters lifting Americans and Vietnamese allies from rooftops, desperate crowds at the gates of the U.S. Embassy. These iconic images marked not only the end of America's involvement, but also the dramatic close of a decades-long conflict. On April 30, 1975, Saigon fell. The Republic of Vietnam, the South, ceased to exist. The North's victory was complete, and soon after, Vietnam was officially unified under communist rule. For the United States, this outcome was a bitter reckoning. The human, financial, and political costs were enormous, and for years to come, America would grapple with the lessons of the Vietnam War. For Le Duc Tho, victory was the ultimate validation of his life's work. Yet, even in triumph, the legacy of the war, devastation, loss, and profound division would shape both nations for generations. So, what can we really learn from this epic diplomatic and military struggle? How did the American and Vietnamese people come to terms with such a complex, painful legacy? And what lessons do these events hold for conflicts today? We'll explore these questions in our next episode. Don't forget to subscribe to History Discussion and hit the bell icon so you won't miss our deep dive into the aftermath of the Vietnam War and its enduring impact. See you next time.